Welcome to my channel where we take a look at math problems that students often have issues with. Together, we will find that math can be easy. Today, let's take a closer look at where the quadratic formula comes from. I'm going to derive it. So any quadratic can be written as ax squared plus bx plus c. And if we're using the quadratic formula, we're setting that equal to 0. So if we complete the square on this, we should end up with the quadratic formula. First step is that we can't complete the square if the leading coefficient isn't 1. So I'm going to divide the entire thing by a. Now, we have to be careful, right? Whenever you divide by a variable, you have to be careful that that variable isn't 0. And so if a is 0, all of what follows doesn't work. And that's why you can't use the quadratic formula on a linear graph. Because if a is 0, we have a linear equation. So, continuing on, when I complete the square, I know that the magic formula, the magic number I mean, is b over 2 squared. Note, this b is this term. And so that's going to be this whole thing divided by 2, which is b over 2a squared, which is b squared all over 4a squared. So we're going to add and subtract that magic number, just like we do when we complete the square. So I get x squared plus b over a x plus my magic number, so b squared over 4a squared. And then I'm going to subtract my magic number again. And we've got to keep our plus c over a as is. And that equals 0. So, I will now complete the square by factoring this. And if we remember right, this will always factor into x plus this magic number before we square it. So that's b over 2a squared. And now we have to deal with all of this part. So, we need a common denominator, so that is going to be 4a squared. So I need to multiply this by 4a. So this is going to be 4ac. So I'm going to say plus 4ac, and then we have minus b squared. And that is all over 4a squared. And that equals 0. So our next step is that we need to take and move this entire thing to the other side. When we do that, we're just going to change the sign of everything on the top. So instead of 4ac minus b squared, when we move it to the other side, it's going to be b squared minus 4ac over 4a squared. And then we need to take the square root. So that gives me, let's go ahead and write up here, x plus b over 2a equals plus or minus the square root of this whole thing. Now I'm going to take the square root of the top and the square root of bottom. So this gives me plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over the square root of 4a squared is the square root of 4 and the square root of a squared, which is 2a. And so now, all we have to do is subtract b over 2a from both sides to get x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Since So we can just combine those fractions since the denominator is the same. And there you have it. We have derived the quadratic formula. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe. If there's a problem you're struggling with, leave it in the comments. Maybe that will be my next video. If you're looking for a private math tutor, my email's in the description. Remember, math can be easy.